Okay, good afternoon. This speech is called the Tech Red Herring. But don't get me wrong, I love tech. It has made so many aspects of my day-to-day life easier. If I want to know when the next 29 bus is arriving, I can use Citymapper. If I want to win the pub quiz, but I don't know the answer, I can give it a cheeky Google under the table. Are you joking? A phone now does everything that a Filofax, telephone, camera, computer, Walkman and newspaper did 20 years ago. To go back to all of those separate entities would be foolish and would mean that we would all need much bigger jacket pockets. So, as you have probably already gathered, I love tech. But it is important that we avoid situations where schools and teachers get blinded by new gadgets and don't ask the question, is this delivering our vision? There are a few principles which are at the heart of the school. Knowledge underpins our pedagogical approach, and high impact, low effort is our way of deciding which strategies to use in order to maximise the benefit to the kids and minimise the faff, workload and bureaucracy. Put simply, at Michaela, we are about simplicity. We thought that because tech has simplified so many aspects of our lives, it would make running a school easier too. In fact, much of the time, tech has left us scratching our heads. It quite simply didn't deliver our vision of simplicity. And without our vision, we are nothing. In order to assess pupils in the simplest way, we decided that digitised multiple choice questions were the way to go. Yes, we had to think a lot about the questions posed to properly test understanding, but in terms of marking, we were understandably seduced by the fact that digitised MCQs can be marked instantly by a computer. Some may argue that schools invest more in tech than in pedagogy, but this wasn't the case with Michaela's early decisions to use tech. Founding Teachers had several discussions linked heavily to research, which eventually led to us using MCQs and tech to aid assessment. Having consulted several contacts with experience of managing tech at schools, we bought tablets. The idea was this: once a week in every subject, pupils would use tablets to answer MCQs, which would test the knowledge that they had been learning over the past week and that they had self-quizzed on for homework the night before. The instant feedback from the computer system would give them precise visibility into who understands what and which pupils were lacking understanding. Instead of attempting to reteach the lot, teachers would then be directed to the few questions that seemed to trip pupils up. We didn't expect it to be a flawless system, but our concerns were somewhat misplaced. We worried that pupils might be able to guess the correct answer, or about how to make sure that the questions tested what we wanted them to test. But we quickly saw that there were plenty of problems which we had not planned for. Let me outline some of the issues we faced when using tech to assess pupil knowledge. Some of the issues are issues that I expect many teachers have come across many times in their career. Before we had even started the quiz, we would be confronted with issues including pupils forgetting their logins, pupils failing to differentiate between upper and lower case when it came to their logins, weak or non-existent internet connections, a buffering screen, a dead battery, an on-the-blink charging unit, or even worse, a tablet falling off of the desk and a screen that resembles Ice Age, the movie. With our weaker classes, the pupils would have their hands up for the whole quiz session, and their weary teacher would trundle from pillar to post, diagnosing the tech malady. It certainly didn't seem high impact, low effort then. A school cohort has a range of abilities when it comes to tech. The technophobes who can't even work out how to type in their login cause the first set of challenges for the teacher, and the tech pros who know their way around a tablet better than every teacher going provide plenty more problems. For example, pupils Google their teachers' names and set photos of them as the image on their home screen. Not always a pretty sight. Or, even better, pupils would take selfies and use their funny face as the background, an even more surprising sight. much to the amusement of the next pupil. Now, whilst one might enjoy the celebrity status of having their face as the background of a tablet, it's not the ideal use of time for a pupil in a lesson. And if pupils really wanted to cause their teachers to sweat, they added passcodes to the tablet, a surefire way to create chaos in the next quiz lesson. And perhaps worst of all, our own Brent Valley techies worked out ways to confuse the system into awarding them 100%. A bit of tapping and coding was all that was needed. Kids were either mucking about or cheating. Whilst MCQs are an excellent way to assess pupil knowledge, using tech to assess pupils' understanding is problematic. All of the aforementioned issues would mean crucial minutes wasted. Ironic when the purpose of tech is to simplify the assessment process. So, now we have reverted back to pen and paper to assess pupils' knowledge, and lo and behold, we have found it to have a much greater impact with much less effort. Quizzes now take 5 minutes to complete because the biggest issue we have is a pupil's pen leaking. Rather than award percentages, teachers separate the quizzes into 3 separate piles. 1 is a good pass, 0.5 is an okay pass, and 0 is a fail. The reason for this is, again, simplicity. The numbers 1, 0.5 and 0 can be entered into a spreadsheet, whilst the good terms good pass, okay pass and fail can't. Teachers enter these 3 different scores into a spreadsheet so that they can easily identify underperforming pupils over time. The whole operation now takes under 15 minutes, with inputting data often taking place outside of lessons. This means that less lesson time is wasted and that more time can be dedicated to reteaching the areas of weakness that the quizzes highlight. Now, those tech advocates in the room might be thinking that these issues might not be recreated with every tech system. You may ask, well, would you use a system if you could guarantee that there would be no problems like this? Well, in an ideal world, yes. That's what we hoped for when we first started. But there are so many frequent changes in tech that schools cannot keep up with. No matter how cutting edge a school system is, you can bet your bottom dollar that at least some pupils you teach use more modern equipment at home. Nothing dates quicker than the cutting edge. This technological arms race will never be won by teachers. And as if this wasn't sounding disastrous enough, let me just mention the horror that was actually writing the questions. As I was running this speech past Johnny Porter, our head of humanities, the mere mention of those 3 dreaded letters, MCQ, had him grimacing. He said he has heart palpitations when we speak about them, but quite honestly, I think that he needs to lay off those cheesy break snacks. But no word of a lie, writing those questions to last the year would take us weeks. It was a nightmare for us teachers. And thankfully, as a school, we are not afraid to say goodbye to a system that does not work for its staff. In essence, MCQs can be a formidably powerful diagnostic and formative teaching tool, but we believe that using tech to answer them is an ineffective mode of assessment and anything but simple. For teachers and pupils alike, those tablet-based MCQs were a big Michaela mistake. I spent a significant amount of August 2014, the month before Michaela opened, producing PowerPoints. We all did. For many teachers, the lesson revolves around the PowerPoint. And back then, we weren't any different. Lesson observation feedback from my previous school would congratulate my beautifully put together slides, whilst other colleagues would be berated for fitting too many words into a slide, or worse than that, lacking animations. In fact, during my initial teacher training, I was introduced to Prezi. I was so taken in by the opportunity to zoom, move and transition that I found myself paying about a tenner a month for the privilege. I prided myself on these presentations. I was told that they were stunning. Kids thanked me. But the reality was they were a huge drain on my time, not to mention my pocket or my sanity. They distracted me from what I should have been doing as a teacher, spending time honing my craft and improving my subject knowledge. Back then, I was lost when Windows decided to restart my computer, or if the PowerPoint or Prezi froze, or if I lost the projector remote control. My colleagues and I were so used to filling tens of slides with learning objectives, bullet points and cool animations that we continued doing so when we joined Michaela. A few months into joining Michaela, we started to think differently. We had the space to think differently. We had the behaviour to teach loads more knowledge each lesson than we were previously used to. PowerPoint just wasn't delivering our vision for knowledge or simplicity. We wanted the most efficient way to enable our pupils to access the most content. We decided that rigorously designed, paper-based resources were an appropriate antidote to the PowerPoint alternative. Such resources prioritise an efficient, content-rich approach to lesson delivery. During each science lesson, for example, pupils encounter over 1,000 words of scientific prose pitched to GCSE, A-level and above. Ditching PowerPoint has freed up resourcing time so that teachers can instead plan their teacher-pupil dialogue and explore different aspects of what is being taught. We have found that moving away from tech has allowed our teachers to focus their delivery on the content. It's paper-based resources, not PowerPoints, that enable us to deliver our vision for simplicity. Teaching strips to the bare bones, where teachers stand at the front of lessons and deliver tons of knowledge. Hashtag just tell 'em! Without getting bogged down by a software update or hashtag projector issues. I remember being presented with an iPad mini at the very beginning of Michaela. Much like a magpie, I am mesmerised by shiny things, especially if they are new and cutting edge. A lot of people are like me. They jump at the tech to work out how to make it work. The problem is, the iPad mini didn't work for us. We were planning to use it to take the register, log merits and demerits on a website, and communicate with other members of staff. But even an iPad mini seems cumbersome when you haven't got a pocket, or when you've forgotten to charge it for the second morning running. Taking the register seemed easier on a full-size computer. Logging merits and demerits could wait until the next free period or after school, and we could just text the teacher if it was urgent, or email them if not. In fact, we have moved to a system where we use our own personal mobile phones. As I mentioned before, a phone now does everything a filofax, telephone, camera, computer, Walkman and newspaper did 20 years ago. We have several WhatsApp groups. I am part of the Michaela staff, on-call, duties and science department groups. Michaela staff is used for general admin, and occasionally an update on which pub we're heading to on a Friday. On-call is for SLT to remove a pupil who has received at least 3 demerits. Duties is to remind teachers where they are meant to be during transitions, break, lunch and after school. And last but not least, the science department group is used for sending through homework to be set and to share little nuggets of wisdom to make teaching certain topics easier. Moving from iPads to mobiles has made our lives easier. Here, we carefully pick the tech that will fit with our vision of simplicity. Now, I am not saying that we should all go back to 1st century BC. In fact, tech has made teachers' lives better and easier in many ways. For instance, Twitter has made events like this possible. We use Twitter to promote teachers' blog posts, which is a fantastic way to connect with other like-minded teachers. As Catherine has mentioned, this has enabled us to attract teachers. Off of the back of staff interaction on Twitter, teachers have applied for teaching posts at Michaela. We have used tech as an incredible recruitment tool, which is free, unlike advertising through many other routes. The fact that we are live streaming this event is another thing that we owe to advancements in tech. YouTube means that I can show my pupils science animations that tech just wouldn't do justice. Quizlet, a quizzing app, is an incredible tool to aid pupils' long-term memories. Times Table Rockstars is a popular website that we use to get our Year 7 pupils to hone their times tables. iExcel is a website full of different maths problems that we set our pupils each evening homework from so that they can practice independently. These are all examples of where tech delivers our vision of simplicity. Here, we take up the opportunities provided by tech if they promise simplicity. This is something that the visualiser provides. I can rearrange or balance equations on a piece of paper under the visualiser without worrying whether I am in the way of a pupil's line of sight. I can watch pupils to ensure that they are paying attention without worrying that someone is sticking out their tongue at me as I innocently turn to face the board. In fact, I have even recorded myself as I explain something on the visualiser to pupils and later have uploaded that onto YouTube for my pupils to watch back again and again. I share these videos with members of staff so that we can ensure consistency across the board. Our head of art, Lizzie, she's recorded hundreds of hours of her using different techniques during lessons that she plays as pupils work independently. If they are unsure, they simply look up and refer back to the video projected onto the board. What a simple way to share best practice. Unlike many schools built over the past few years, Michaela has computer rooms. Instead, many other schools opt for the laptop trolley idea. We rejected using laptops for reasons similar to why we ditched using tablets during quiz lessons. They often have dead batteries and on-the-blink charging units. Laptops can be misplaced, and often pupils forget to plug the laptop into the charging unit when returning it. Handing out laptops is a whole operation in itself. We, on the other hand, have 3 IT rooms with standard computers, and we don't have any of the above-mentioned issues. We don't even have a full-time IT person. Instead, we have Ollie, who comes into school twice a week at most. We are saving money and our minds. IT rooms offer us the simplicity that we care so much about. Here, what we have learned from our tech mistakes is that schools must carefully pick tech that fits with their vision. If the tech fits, we'll use it. Whether that tech is a pen, phone, visualiser. We don't want to be blinded to the fact that our vision isn't being delivered by tech. Michaela isn't full of tech denialists or Luddites. We are tech realists. We acknowledge its strengths and weaknesses. We recognise that some tech won't deliver our vision. You are looking at somebody who spent years perfecting their PowerPoint slides. Being tech realists means that we realise that tech is often a red herring. It is seductive. It works for so many aspects of our lives. So why wouldn't it work in the classroom too? It seems to be an incredibly efficient way to achieve exactly what we want to achieve. But if that were the case, then Michaela would still be embracing it. But in practice and in the classroom, it isn't what it seems to be. The same principle runs through everything we do. We aren't led astray by tech that seems clever. We focus on the vision and invest only in tech that aids the delivery of our vision. We don't champion novelty for the sake of novelty. We champion it when it works. Thank you. Any questions? We've got a hand right at the back. Thank you.
Thank you. I love the WhatsApp idea. I'm just wondering about how you manage that in terms of safeguarding with teachers using their own phone.
Okay, thank you very much. In terms of safeguarding, we have to trust our teachers a certain amount. They obviously are with children in their classroom for hours a day, and we trust them to be professionals. And the same thing runs through the WhatsApp. In fact, it's not really such a safeguarding worry. It's more that people then start to chat about what pub we're going to. Is anyone doing this at the weekend? We have people sometimes sending through messages that are meant for their friends. That's the worst thing that happens. But, you know, we do remind people, let's just use it for the urgent things that matter. So, for example, remember that you should only be sending your children up the old stairs if they're coming from the yard. So thank you for your question, but we trust our teachers and we use it in a way that makes our life simple and more easy, and we don't consider it to be a concern. Any other questions? Anything from the internet, Miss Claire?
I've lost it. Here we are. How will your students cope in high-tech universities? Are you preparing them for the next level of their education?
Thank you for that question, the internet. Well, thank you. So, how are we going to prepare our pupils for the university times where they are using lots of tech? Well, I think the best way to prepare our pupils is to give them loads and loads of knowledge. We give the most focus to the subjects that will have the most impact on the rest of their lives. Our pupils are already writing essays in humanities and English that are a standard of undergraduate level. So I think the best way that we can prepare our children for university life is by getting them up there with that knowledge. And then, our kids, they know more about tech than I know. And I'm a child of the 21st century. I was born in the 90s, and I was using like a camera phone when I was at school, but they know more than I know. So I don't know how much I could really give them. So we give them knowledge instead.
We've also got a question about IT lessons or computing lessons.
Again, the most amount of focus on the subjects that will have the most impact on the rest of their lives. Children, 40% of children nationally leave without 5 A-star to C GCSEs, including English and maths. That's a travesty. We don't want that to happen to our children, and we think, as Miss Snuffy has already said, so I'm in Twitter mode at the moment, Miss Burwell Singh, English, maths, science, humanities, music, art, languages are more important than IT lessons. Pupils grapple with that outside of lesson time when they're at home, and quite frankly, if my pupils were to not get their maths or their English GCSE, but to get a level 9 in IT, I think you've done something wrong as a teacher.
Just one I might add. In fact, Danny Quinn, our head of maths, should really be explaining this. But we had a question come in, and if you're thinking it as well, it might help, which is why do we use 1, 0.5 and 0 on our spreadsheet? Surely if we use something like 3, 2, 1, that would be more efficient, blah, blah. Now, Danny, thank you, Danny, has explained about percentages, so we use those numbers because we are not that technologically advanced, hence we don't do computing lessons. No, I'm joking, it's amazing. No, because if you have a 1.5 and a 0, percentages are really simple. So if they pass 1 and fail 2, 32% just automatically, whereas if you get the numbers like 3, 2 and 1, it all becomes far too complicated.
Thank you, Miss. I can tell that you passed your maths GCSE. I think we're done there. Thank you very much.